Their journey began in Yasharel, but they were scattered across the face of the earth, each one with its own beat, and each one with its own rhythm. As the dry bones are being revived, the beat begins again at the heart of the tribe.
Well, hello. Welcome to Heart of the Tribe's weekly show. Boy, if we got a presentation for you today. My name is Chelle Wagner, and I'm so glad that you came to join me today. And I do have with me my guest, Leigh Caruthers, with us again today to help us understand the body systems that go along with these different tribes. So, welcome, Leigh. Good to see you today.
Good to see you, Chelle. Shalom, everyone here. So glad to be here again. This one, I know I say this every week, but this one is my favorite so far. And I do say that every week because, Yah is amazing and how he has designed us from the beginning to the end. That's exactly what these shows are doing, is just shining a light on how we already knew he was amazing, but it goes
Yeah.
way deeper.
Absolutely, it really does. I am so excited. I know we've got some great stuff to share today. And I guess we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. What
Yeah.
do you think? Okay, well, I'll share my screen first. So, we are talking today about the tribe of Shimon and the endocrine system. Wow. So, the first thing that I was looking at was, let's just take a look at Shimon's name. Okay, so we know that the reason that his mom named him Shimon was because she said, "I've been heard that Shema," right? And so that's really very interesting. Even when we look at that word in that word picture, we've got the shin, the mem, and the aleph, which is the first part of Shimon's name, right? So we've got a destruction of chaos, right? That helps us to see. Or if we're looking at it in the short, we're destroying the chaos of the all seeing eye when we hear. So when we look at his name completely, Shimon, we have the shin, the mem, the aleph, the vav, and the noon. So we've got a destruction in the sheen, we've got chaos in the mem, and we've got sight, or that all-seeing eye, or an experience. Okay, being hooked or joined to the seed, which is life. All right. So we've got to have the right sight, is what it's telling me. Our eye has to be on the right thing. It can't be on the chaos and the ways of the world if we want to have life. Yeah. So to really hear, to shema, we've got to destroy that chaos of the all-seeing eye away from us. So it was almost like, when I looked at it, almost like a warning within his name, or even when we're told Shema Yasharel, we're to hear and obey, so otherwise we're going to get drug away by that all-seeing eye, so easy. Um, when I had first prayed about this with um, the message of the heart of the tribe, what Yah showed me was a kind of a combination out of the Psalms. It was the only one that I got kind of a combination message. And it was from Psalm 142, 6, 143, 10, and 144, 1. And this is kind of the picture that I put together from that was, "You are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Teach me to do your will, because you are my Elohim. Let your good Ruach guide me on ground that is level. Blessed be Adonai, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle."
Beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that when y'all showed me that about the heart of Shimon. You know, there's a lot of intricacies involved with the tribe of Shimon, aren't there? Isn't that what you saw too? I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
it's more complicated. It's than we would think, you know. There, and I see this whole reconciliation process in the whole thing. You know, I see somebody who has walked way far into the things that they shouldn't have, and yet Yah is able to bring us way back into his righteousness, you know. And so he does teach our hands and train our hands and our fingers for his battle in his way, you know, not in our way, right?
Right.
So he reconciles us to himself. So what I saw, and hello Jennifer, hello Tammy, so glad you guys are with us today. Good to see everybody. um, I'm just going to kind of read through what I had here. That the most glaring characteristic we see in this tribe is that they are warriors, right? When the children of Yasharel marched together in the wilderness, the symbol on the tribe of Shimon's banner was a sword and an earthen vessel in the shape of a water pitcher. So that's really interesting that both aspects are there. We've got the sword, but yet we've got this earthen vessel that is prone. I mean, it's built to carry living water, right?
Wow.
It's built for that, but yet aren't our earthen vessels easily cracked and prone to what's happening in the world? You know, earthen vessels are not, you know, the sturdiest stuff that there ever was. People who we see that people are fragile, a lot more fragile than we would have ever thought. But we are built to carry that living water. And
Mhm.
so it's interesting that both of those things were on the banner. So in Genesis 34, we see the story of Shimon and Levi, and they have deceived the men of Shechem in order to destroy them. And this was done out of revenge. Their sister Dinah was raped by the prince of that city. So then the prince of that city and the city had the same name, and that name was Shechem. And so I didn't have time to put this word picture in there, but if we looked at it, we have a shin, a kuf, and a mem. So our shin, I can do it this way. Of course, we know that this means like a destruction, right? To it's like the
Oh,
teeth.
right.
It's teeth. It's to consume, to destroy, right? And then we've got a cough, which is a picture of the open hand and open palm. So we've got a destruction of the hand of, let me see, it's the mem, which I've got over here, which is like water chaos, right?
Mhm.
So there we have it right there, right? So we've got this, it's in the very name of the city and of this prince who takes Dinah. So I did think this was interesting because in this story of Genesis 34:30, Yaakov says to Shimon and Levi, "You've troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanite and the Perizim, and I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house." So Yaakov's reaction to this was fear. So I was looking at this word about stink, right? You know, what is this word stink? So it's a word that is pronounced ba'ash. It's H887 in the Strongs and the Bryant Driver Briggs. So when you look at all the different commentaries that you can pull from, I kind of boiled it down. It's like stinkweed. It's something that is just, it's foul. It's rotting, right? It speaks of decay, something that is decaying. So I found this very interesting because this is what Yaakov said. This is why he said, that how the blessing that he ended up giving to these tribes, he's basing it a little bit on this, right? And so he said, you've made me stink, you've made me smell like something that is rotting, something destruction. So there is a correspondence to this in the Greek, and it is G3744, and it's the word osme. Now here's my favorite example of this word in the Greek. And it comes out of 2 Corinthians 2, starting in 14, going through 16. It says, now thanks be unto Elohim, which always causes us to triumph in Mashiach, and makes manifest the savor of his knowledge by us in every place. So this is the word. It's a savor. It's a smell. Okay? For we are unto Elohim a sweet savor of Mashiach in them that are saved, and in them that perish, to the one we are the savor of death unto death. Something that's rotting, something that's fading away. That's like that Bashan, right? It's something that stinks, of something that's decaying. And to the other, the savor of life unto life, and who is sufficient for these things. And so he's talking about us as we live our lives, as we are, have been redeemed by Mashiach, and we walk around in this world, and how the people have this, these reactions to us. But I found this very interesting in this, in correspondence to what Yaakov was saying unto them. You've made me stink, right? Unto them. Maybe you've reminded them of the savor of death. I
Right.
mean, very interesting. Now, because of the destruction of Shechem, Yaakov prophesied that these two tribes would be scattered in Yasharel, having no land to call their own. So in Genesis, let me move that. In Genesis 49, starting in verse 5 through 7, we see this blessing. It says, Shimon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations, right? Within their very dwelling places, he's saying. O my soul, come not into their secret, unto their assembly, my honor be not united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self will they dug down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Yaakov and scatter them in Yasharel. Now, the big part where we really see this is within Jasher. So I'm going to remove this for just a moment. Let me see. Do I want to go there first? Okay. We'll go to Jasher first. Let me just remove this and read a couple of parts out of Jasher for you guys. So, I mean, this is a huge story in Jasher, and I just didn't have time to type in all of this, right? So, I started looking just over here. It starts like in chapter 20, it starts in chapter 33, and it shows how Shechem, just his soul became fixed. It was a fixation, right? He was not going to be denied. I mean, he literally, when you read this story, Dinah, the women of Yaakov, so we're talking Rachel and Leah, and Bilhah and Zilpah and Dinah. These were the 5 women that were part of this household, right? And so, and Dinah being the only daughter, the rest were the mothers of Yasharel. So the 5 of them, they've been there, they've been living there for 18 months in this place, right? And a festival is going on, and the women of the area are dancing, and so the women decide to go down and just observe this festival. And Dinah is sitting with the mothers of Yasharel. And it says in this story, literally, Shechem fixed his eyes on her, saw her. He had never seen her before. She's a teenage girl, and he decides he's the prince of that city. I know all the women of this city. This one I've never seen. This one I'm gonna have. And he literally sends men to take her by force and take her to her house and immediately rapes her and ravages her, right? And humiliates her. And this is what has happened. Okay. So now going on a little further in the story, because we just don't have time to read it all. So Shimon and Levi and come up with a plan, right? How we're going to take vengeance on this. So they've all been kind of, talking about this and what are we going to do? And, they've been consulting with Yaakov and they decide they're going to take action. So they do, and they slay they trick them, they get them to become circumcised, and there's a lot that goes on in this story. It's very the, you know the people of Shechem, there was a whole nother camp of people called the Hiddakim, which were related to them, and they are in great opposition to these men of Shechem putting themselves to be circumcised. They're like, why in the world do you want to involve yourself with the Ivrim, and why do you want to intermarry with them? They're not of our bloodline. So they didn't want them intermarrying with the bloodline of the Ivrim, right? Very interesting there. And so then the damage has been done. And so we're in chapter 34 at verse 32. And when Yaakov saw all that they had done to the city and saw the spoil that they took from them, Yaakov was very angry at them. And Yaakov said unto them, what is this that you've done to me? Behold, I obtained rest among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land, and none of them were meddling with me. And now you have done to make me obnoxious, right? And that's the same thing. Obnoxious. You've made me stink. It's saying the same thing that we saw to the inhabitants of the land amongst the Canaanim and the Perizim. And I am but a small number, and they will assemble against me and slay me when they hear of your work with their brethren. I and my household will be destroyed. And Shimon and Levi and all their brothers with them answered their father Yaakov and said unto them, behold, we live in the land, and shall Shechem do this to our sister? Why are you silent at all that Shechem has done? And shall he deal with our sister as with a harlot in the streets? So it wasn't just Shimon and Levi saying this. It was all the brothers, right? When you hear about the battle, you see that 11 sons end up going, because this battle didn't end there. This battle continued, for quite a bit, which is really interesting. Skipping on to 34:49, it says, and the kings of the Emorym. So we're dealing with the giants, right? The race of the giants. The kings of the Emorym heard the evil that the sons of Yaakov had done to the city of Shechem, and they were greatly astonished of them. One of the things that they ended up saying is, we haven't seen things like this happen since the days of Nimrod, right? And so I know that Leigh has some stuff to share with us on that. Do you want to interject, or just want me to finish this part?
Oh, you can finish this part. That way I can flow with it to that and just reference back.
Yeah, we'll reference back. So keep that in mind with the things of the giantism and the fact that that's what they were dealing with, right? Okay, so now just skipping on right here. I'm skipping through the story and I'm just getting to this part because I just wanted everybody to see this in Jasher. After many, many battles, I have skipped all the way to Jasher 45. And I am in verse 2. Okay, and so it's talking about when all the men of that are the tribes, the sons of Jacob, are taking women for themselves, wives for themselves. It talks about who Reuben took, but then it says, and Shimon, his brother, took his sister Dinah for a woman, And she bore unto him Yemuel, Yamin, Ohad, Yakin, and Zakur, 5 sons. And then also afterward came to Buna, the Canaanite woman. The same is Buna, whom Shimon took captive from the city of Shechem. And Buna was before Dinah and attended upon her. And Shimon came to her, and she bore unto him Shaul. So we see these 2 wives. It ended up being a captive out of Shechem who attended Dinah, like her handmaid, perhaps, right? And Dinah, his sister, that he ended up taking to wife. So I thought that was just some really interesting. I mean, there's so much there, but we have limited time. So I'm going to share my screen back again, and we'll keep going into what else I was uncovering. All right. So the word instruments, when it's talking about the instruments of cruelty, so we're going back to this blessing of Yaakov, right? The instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. I found this one statement very interesting. So I did just a little digging on it. It says the word instruments is keli, right? So we've got a kuf, a lamed, and a yod. Now, when you look at the Hebrew language, and say you were trying to look at it as a chiastic pattern, these 3 are right in the center, right? This is the 3 center points. You've got the 11th, 12th, and 13th letter right there. Okay, so you've got a hand, a shepherd's staff, and a hand. You've got 2 different hands, right? So this instruments, this is the hand of the shepherd stretching out his hand, right, for justice. That's what I've always seen in this. This to me is the right hand of the Father. This is such a big word picture. So what I see is the hand of authority is the hand that's being stretched forth. This is what I'm seeing, these instruments, because when you look further in other parts of the Bible, when it's talking about this in some of the extra biblical books, it says that Yah used this to deal his blow to this city. Very, very interesting. So I dug a little bit with a primitive root. The closest primitive root that I could find for this word was Keilah. And so it's got a hey instead of the yod. And it means to cease, to complete, to accomplish, to destroy, right? So it looks like this instrument was Yah's instrument to deal with this wickedness in Shechem, right? Okay, so the word cruelty is Hamas, which means violence. The word habitations is Mekara and means sword. I would have thought that it meant house or tent, but it doesn't. It means sword, right? And maybe that's where we get the sword on the banner, right? So Shimon was selected by Joseph to stay behind in prison while the rest of the brothers returned. When the famine hit in, all the land, and Joseph had been sent beforehand, he'd been sold into slavery by his brothers. And so he was there, and he had risen to second in command, and he was storing the grain, and he looked very Egyptian, so much so that his brothers couldn't even recognize him by this point, right? So he selects just one brother to stay in prison. And I think that now with the testament of Shimon, there's the 12 testaments of the patriarchs, the brothers, the tribes, where they write their own testament. And so that's one of the lost books of the Bible. And so I was reading starting in chapter 2 with Simon's testament, and I wanted to share this with you guys. So it says, "Hearken, my children, to Shimon your father, and I will declare unto you what things I have in my heart. I was born of Yaakov as my father's second son, and my mother Leah called me Shimon because Yahweh had heard her prayer. So we see the name right, right there, right? Moreover, I became strong exceedingly. And you certainly see that when you read this story in Jasher. I mean, wow, what a warrior. When you go on, it talks about like the roar of his voice when he cries out and yells. I mean, that the whole earth shakes. It's like an earthquake. It's amazing when you read that story in Jasher. So, moreover, I became strong exceedingly. I shrank from no achievement, nor was I afraid of aught. I mean, you just see this bulldozer personality. There's no challenge too big, right?
Right.
I mean, I've got strength and I can do it, and a lot of pride in that physical strength, right? For my heart was hard, and my liver was immovable, and my bowels without compassion. So interesting here. You know, Leigh and I are finding this as we dig in. We're really seeing the connotation to these body parts, right? And
Mm.
how this personality, what was going on physically in this tribe, right?
Right.
Because valor also has been given from El Elyon to men in soul and body. For in the time of my youth, I was jealous in many things of Joseph, because my father loved him beyond all. You know, I find this so interesting. I was listening even to my husband's story last night, and he was talking about. Um, I could really hear it in his voice, and he and I talked about it. You know, after he did his show last night, how the thing that hurt was, he said, you know, my family gave up on me,
Mhm.
right? That I was just kind of thrown out, right? That I wasn't important. And when you see this, you know, this whole thing that my father, he's talking about, I was jealous because my father loved him beyond all, right? It was like my father didn't even acknowledge me, basically, in comparison to the favor that he showed upon Joseph. You know, that favoritism of a child, within that family system, what that can do to the other children, you know, that that damage that it can do to them. It's amazing. And I've experienced that, and felt that myself. Yeah. I'm looking at Asia. Thank you. Nina said that was such an awesome show last night, that the Ruach Hakodesh was there. Thank you so much. And I'll make sure that Robert knows that, and he'll appreciate that. Um, yeah.
And
I
Shell,
hope.
I see here also where he's talking about his bowels without compassion. When we go through that where we feel we're thrown away, there's a jealousy that it gets in your guts. I mean, you have this hardness about you because you have to survive. You know, you have
Right.
to harden yourself up, because if you don't, you're just going to be crying all the time because you feel so, left out. So by making ourselves strong like that and tightening up, your bowels are immovable because you have literally turned yourself to stone. And
Wow.
that's what I saw when I saw this, is his bowels are immovable because he had turned himself to stone to be able to handle that kind of pain he was suffering. He went through some stuff. You don't just wake up angry one day, for no reason. There's things that happen that get you there.
Exactly, right. It's not a normal state. There's got to be trauma and wounds that happen. It
Right,
doesn't just happen for no reason. That
right.
absolutely. I so relate to that. Yeah. So going back into verse 6, for in the time of my youth I was jealous in many things of Joseph, because my father loved him beyond all, and I set my mind against him to destroy him, because the prince of deceit sent forth the ruach of jealousy and blinded my mind, so that I regarded him not as a brother, nor did I spare even Yaakov my father. Look at how the enemy takes advantage of this. He sees what's going on. He sees the mistakes that we're making in our humanity. He sees the wounds, and he's like, how can I capitalize on that the best? So he sends this ruach of jealousy, right? Verse
Yeah.
8. But his Elohim and the Elohim of his fathers sent forth his angel and delivered him out of my hands. For when I went to Shechem to bring ointment for the flocks, and Reuben to Dothan, where were our necessaries and all our stores, Yehuda my brother sold him to the Yishmaelim. I can't say that word this
I
morning.
can't either.
And when Reuben heard these things, he was grieved, for he wished to restore him to his father. But on hearing this, I was exceedingly wroth against Yehuda, in that he let him go away alive. And for 5 months I continued wrathful against him. He was so angry with his brother for selling him, right?
Right.
Amazing. Can you imagine? I mean, every day Yehuda had to hear about it. I've been in situations like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yep. But Yahweh restrained me and withheld me from the power of my hands, right? Because it's literally, you can see the power of his hands. He wanted to use that strength, that physical strength, to literally
Yeah.
choke the life out of him,
He
because he was
did.
so jealous. Yes, he did. For my right hand was half withered for 7 days. The right hand. And I knew, my children, that because of Joseph this had befallen me. And I repented and wept, right? When that physical strength got attacked and started taken away, and Yah, who is the one who gives us our strength, says, oh yeah, you think you're so strong? I'm gonna bring you to your knees. Yeah. And so then he begins to weep, right? And repent. And I besought Yahuwah Elohim that my hand might be restored. Just give me back my hand.
Right. Right.
And that I might hold aloof from all pollution and envy and from all folly. Right? So he's getting a clue that this envy, it's polluted him, right?
It,
It's made him toxic, you know? For I knew that I had devised an evil thing before Yahweh and Yaakov my father, on account of Joseph my brother, in that I envied him. So then a little part here on chapter 3. Well, I think I've got all of chapter 3. And now, my children, hearken unto me, and beware of the ruach of deceit and envy. For envy rules over the whole mind of a man, and suffers him neither to eat nor to drink nor to do any good thing. Right? It consumes. This is what he's saying. But it ever suggests to him to destroy him that he envies. I mean, it's a destroying hatred. I've got to erase this person from off the planet, right? A consuming thing to murder. All right. And so long as he that is envied flourishes, he that envy fades away. So he's watching, as long as this person that I've set my hatred upon, I'm watching him be blessed, and that envy is diminishing me. It's diminishing my strength. It's diminishing my flesh and my ruach, right? It's causing me to fade away. 2 years, therefore, I afflicted my soul with fasting in the fear of Yahweh. And I learned that deliverance from envy comes by the fear of Elohim. Amazing. So amazing. For if a man flees to Yahweh, the evil Ruach runs away from him, and his mind is lightened, and henceforward he sympathizes with him whom he envied, and forgives those who are hostile to him. And so envy ceases and so ceases from his envy. And so this little bit in chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. And my father asked concerning me, because he saw that I was sad. And I said unto him, I am pained in my liver, for I mourned more than they all, because I was guilty of the selling of Joseph. And when we went down to Mitzrayim, and he bound me as a spy, I knew that I was suffering justly, and I grieved not. And that was exactly why Joseph chose to, that he was the one that would be put there, because Joseph knew that he hated him. Now, I found this one other thing interesting, because we're looking at the furtherance of the whole tribe. So in Numbers 25, 1 through 18, this whole story of Phineas and Zimri, it shows us Zimri was from the tribe of Simeon. In the midst of the plague that was judgment from Yahweh on the children of Israel, Zimri brought a Canaanite woman into the camp and had relations with her. Phineas from the tribe of Levi took a spear and pierced them both through at once, at one time. So they were literally committing the act right there in the assembly. I mean, you got to be pretty bold right there. But that was the thing, right? The temple worship, that was how the Canaanites worshiped their Elohim, right? They did these sexual acts right there in front of their Elohim's altars. And they were bringing that into the tabernacle of Yahweh. and Phineas stops it because it started a plague. So it's also interesting that Moses doesn't even mention Simeon at all in Deuteronomy 33. And I believe that's just because he has been so scattered into the other tribes by then that, his prominence has diminished a great deal. However, we do know that he is right there in Revelation and has a gate with his name on it into the new city of Jerusalem, right?
Right.
So that was the part that I had for today.
That was so good, Chelle. I absolutely love how when we dig into stuff, every week I notice every show that or presentation that each of us brings touches on a same sort of subject, envying, deceits. It's repeated through
Yeah,
our shows and how to combat it and how it affects us. Digging in. Yeah,
yeah,
James said it's in the Walking in the Word this week. It's just blows me away. It's like the second, third, fourth, fifth witness. It's just like,
exactly.
yes, this is what we're talking about. Yes, do
Isn't
this.
that isn't that interesting? And so Robert and I do that too. So now we call it Wagner stereo. So now we've got Caruthers stereo going on with James saying, so interesting that Walking in the Word this week was about deceit and envy too. That's so funny. You know,
I
um,
think we're having a Heart of the Tribe
serious.
stereo where it's all of us that are here under the platform. It's a repeated thing. And to me, it's just, and Jennifer's right. Yes, that
Yeah,
was sex magic that they're
that's
doing.
exactly what it was. Yeah,
They would like that to continue now, and we do
right.
see that in our media, and we do see that in what they're putting out there for our children. We had to get rid of our cable years ago just because you couldn't even watch primetime TV without hearing all the cuss words and seeing all the things that used to be, reserved for channels you had to pay for.
Right, right.
you know so they are trying definitely to and it's sex magic. If
Yeah,
you watch that and take it in, you're part of their
yeah,
thing they're doing. So I absolutely loved going into this. Everyone I say is my favorite one, but I love how you and I bring sometimes the same thing but see it differently or
yeah,
pull two different sides of it. And that's what I think is so important. And I think that's why y'all downloaded this to you and then told you to tap me on the shoulder to come in and help with the medical side, because the medical side and your side are the same, because in the Ruach, this all to him isn't separate. Nothing is separate.
Right.
It's all together and cohesive.
Yeah.
We just think things are separate. You know, the 12 separate systems and the 12, it's not. It's honestly, he's like, look, my children, I've put this together and it's all together.
Very,
So
very
I
interesting.
pull, when you gave me the sheets, when you first had the download, I study on that first little part for quite a while because I really want to pray and see what Yah was going to show me. And I just touched briefly. He was the second son, and Leah named him Simeon because Yah had heard her prayer. You covered that. He and his younger brother Levi killed the inhabitants of Shechem in response to rape of their sister Dinah. And you gave some wonderful words about that. And one thing I noticed is he was extremely strong, right? Even in that first part where you were reading in the Testament of Simeon. And I love the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs.
Me too.
These are amazing. Each one gives such a wonderful insight, not only into that person, but to that tribe. And thank goodness Chelle keeps reminding me over and over, I'm having to get my churchianity side out of my life to realize we are each part of that tribe. We are each part of a tribe. We are the tribes. We just have to pray, and Yah will show us where we belong. Or like Chelle said yesterday, it may be as we're being gathered together, and when he says, then you are tribe, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's so exciting to know that we're not just hearing about these tribes that existed, back in the Old Testament days. These are attributes that we each have. And if you look into them, you can see yourself more in one than the other, or maybe you're just like, wow, I totally get those feelings. And what's bad for me is I find parts of myself in all of them so far.
Yeah.
Can I just say I'm from all of them? I don't know. But they
Yeah.
were a tribe of warriors. The banner, I got the sword. I had no idea about the earthen vessel. And I think that's so interesting because whatever you put in the vessel, the water, the liquid becomes the shape of that vessel, right?
Yes.
So we're shaped to the vessel that we're in. I
Right.
just find that amazing. And from the sheet, I looked at the word picture, I was looking at it from what he went through in his whole life. So what I saw was that Simeon was consumed with the chaos of the envy at what he saw in the relationship of his father Yaakov and Joseph. He
That's
was
good.
he
Yeah.
was consumed with it. He was
Mhm.
just so consumed with that rage. And it made me think about what I was talking about with envy, being stuck in that circle. He couldn't get out of it. He was just digging that trench and getting madder and madder every second until Yah withered his right hand. You can't choke someone with one hand. you know. I just found that when you said, "Oh, I'll show you about your strength," and he did. That almost sounds like he had a mini stroke, like he could have had a TIA, a trans ischemic attack, where y'all just literally said, "You will not use your hand for 7 days."
Yeah. Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah. You almost wonder if you wouldn't have, if you've got that kind of, I mean, because we're talking about the fight, flight type response, right? And when you live in that kind of adrenaline rush, could that cause a mini
Absolutely.
stroke?
Absolutely. And so much we're going to see about this endocrine system is based in our brain. So
Wow.
yes, absolutely. He could have literally caused his own little mini stroke there.
Wow. Wow.
And I know you had covered the chapter 2. Let's see. I touched on the bow without compassion. Turning to stone. I know my anger has turned my constitution to stone, where you can handle those things. But this is our endocrine system. And a lot of people don't realize how important your endocrine system is. And it is responsible for all of your emotions. And remember when I was saying about earlier, we were talking before, here's that pineal gland and here's your all-seeing eye. I am glad that this is on here. I hope people can see it. I can't blow it up. But if you look and you see an Egyptian hieroglyphs, that all-seeing eye, look at that. There's the eye. Here's this part. And the normal, you see like the makeup that comes out. That's where they take that from.
Wow.
That pineal gland there. And your pituitary glands, the little P-shaped right here, all this is deep in your brain. So you would see, yes, if you were full of rage and anger and that fight or flight going constantly, how easy it would be to cause a disruption here within the midbrain. Like this is in the very center of your brain and the very beneath the pituitary gland actually sits underneath it, like at the very bottom part.
And look at this comment from Jennifer. What you're showing is exactly what her
Yes.
comment is, that the physical
Yes.
is just a manifestation of the spiritual.
Absolutely.
I mean, literally that. I mean, we're literally have the picture of it right there.
Right. And that's
Amazing.
what we're discovering more and more as we dive into this, and why I think it's important for us to all remember these things are not separate. They are part of it, and they are that physical manifestation. We see the thyroid. That's very important for metabolism. I'm going to break these down on the next slide, but it sits in your neck and looks like a butterfly. It literally looks like a butterfly, and the little parathyroids are also part of the endocrine. They're on the 4 points of the wings. It's just amazing how this is. The adrenal glands that are responsible for that fight or flight sit like little hats on top of your kidneys. Your pancreas is right behind your stomach and shares a lot of vessels with your liver. So when he says he is pained in his liver, it absolutely is reflective of his endocrine system. And we would see someone that drank a lot, pancreatitis and cirrhosis go hand in hand because they share those vessels. And when one gets inflamed or sluggish, that affects the other, which then affects your ability to use and produce insulin that you use to digest sugars and have your energy. And then in the woman, we see the ovaries, and the men, we see the testes. So these are all part of our endocrine system.
Wow.
So the endocrine system are hormones created and released by all these glands of the endocrine system. They control nearly all the processes of the body, all of them. These chemicals coordinate the body's functions, including our metabolism to growth and development, our emotions, our mood, our sexual function, and even sleep. Wow. Everything that we need to feel anything comes from our endocrine system. And I look at Simeon and I think he had some things going on, and we're going to look at that. But I really think he had some issues within his endocrine system. It's considered the messenger system because they are sending out these hormones that tell everything how to work. The hypothalamus in your brain controls the endocrine system and uses information from the nervous system. There we see our tribes working together to determine when to tell the other glands to produce hormones. It controls many processes, including mood, hunger, thirst, sleep patterns, sexual functions. And then I broke it down. The pituitary is the size of a little pea in your brain. It sits at the very bottom of it, and it makes the hormones that control your thyroid. Wow. The thyroid is a butterfly shape in the front of your neck, and you can actually feel it if you ever go to the doctor and they are feeling your throat. They're checking your thyroid. It's responsible for your metabolism. Your parathyroid are 4 tiny rice-sized glands that sit on your thyroid at the 4 points of the butterfly wings. Mm-hmm. And they control the level of calcium in your body from your heart, your kidney, your bones, and the nervous system to work right. So we're seeing again, as we've gone through these body systems, how everything works together, just like the tribes working with each other.
Yeah.
Now the adrenal glands are very interesting. There's two of those that sit on top of your kidneys, and they control your metabolism, your blood pressure, your sexual development, your response to stress, fight or flight. Feelings of anger and hostility have been most commonly associated with elevated levels of cortisol, which is the hormone that is produced by your adrenal glands. So absolutely, that would have an effect on someone. If you were constantly in a hyper state of that, you would feel irritable, angry, and hostile.
Yeah, well, imagine when we saw that, he was angry and talking about it for 5 months straight to Yehuda because it didn't go the way he wanted it to go. I mean, that is a constant rush.
It is, and it would have just, at the end of it, the letdown would have been hard. It would have been, he would have just been wiped out. That you just can't survive like that for too long.
Right.
The pineal gland is most interesting, and all through history in multiple different religions, we see how different people and religious people have used this in their worship. It manages our sleep cycle and our body's perception to light. I especially love that part because to me, Yahweh is our light.
Yeah.
Yahusha is our light. So this pineal gland manages that perception to light, and considered the third eye in Hinduism and Buddhism. And I showed you on the picture how that looked like the all-seeing eye from the Egyptians, right?
It certainly did, even to the point of like the teardrop.
Right? The teardrop, and then the makeup that comes off to the side. It's it. They actually had to have been able to cut a slice through a brain at just the right part to be able to see that. And that is exactly what they have that for, is to show the third eye, or the pineal gland. Wow. So the shape of it resembles a pine cone, and a slice of it reveals the shape and modify of the stylized Egyptian eye. Yes. Dionysus or Bacchus in Rome, or the Liber Pater in Greco-Roman religion, was a nature god of fruitfulness and vegetation, and the god of wine and ecstasy, portrayed with a staff made of fennel topped by a pine cone. And we're going to see in a minute, the Vatican has a former first century Roman fountain called the Fontana della Pigna, which is decorating a vast niche in the wall of the Vatican. And the reason is they took this straight out of Rome, from first century Rome. And this was used in Roman deity worship. So if you are questioning, like the rest of us, about the Catholics, well, you can know someone by their fruits and what they have decorating and adorning their places. And I could spend a year showing you different things in the Vatican that would just blow your mind, that shouldn't be associated with what they think what they say that it means.
Wow.
So the pancreas sits behind the stomach, and it shares some of the vessels with the liver, and they work closely together in digestion. It plays a significant role in the digestive system and makes insulin that controls blood sugar. So we know with diabetes, what would, be the fallout if you can't either produce your insulin or use your insulin. There's two different types, type 1 and type 2. That are affected by our pancreas. And since it does work so closely with the liver, like I said, if one is affected, the other is going to be affected. They usually have the same issues at the same time. And anything with an itis at the end, like pancreatitis, that's an infection of the organ. When you see itis on the end, the word in front of it means infection of that system. So it's just very interesting.
Yeah.
And then the ovaries in women release estrogen. They're both two in the lower abdomen, one on each side. And then the testes, or the testicles in men, make the sperm and release testosterone that gives them their energy, their strength, their muscle mass. We think about Simeon. He was big and strong. He obviously had a lot of testosterone. So here is that first century fountain. And if you look into the Vatican, you will see these pictures of this giant pine cone. Well, that is Dionysus worship. That is the pineal gland. That is what they consider the third eye. And it's a giant pine cone right in front of the Vatican from first century Rome.
Wow.
I had to put that in there because
Yeah.
it's like, there's so much more I could put in, but we're talking about the body systems and not. So you already went over chapter 3, but the part I had here at the bottom was that our endocrine system controls our emotions with the hormones of our body. So just like Simeon, if there is not control and order within the endocrine system, every process can be affected. And what did Yaakov say? You've made me stink. He's made him look bad. Let's just call it that. He's really made him look bad by what he did. So when one thing is out of whack, everything is out of order at that point. From our ability to sleep, our ability to digest our food, make energy from that food, metabolism, which helps make energy for us, our fight or flight, or dysfunction of those processes. So all of our emotions that are regulated by our endocrine system, it's easy to see how envy, that emotion of action that drives us in a circle of repetitive destruction to our ruach by being stuck in our mind, would be defeated by the fear of Yahweh. I love that part when you read that. Deliverance from envy comes from the fear of Elohim. And that was one thing I went over also with the envy in our walking in the word. And if you guys haven't seen that yet, I would highly recommend. Kat and Chelle brought such wonderful things as well. But it's really important right now because we've got to be clothing ourselves in obedience and getting ourselves ready, the wise virgins, and we can't be doing that if we're harboring jealousy and deceit and envy, all of these things that we don't need to have within us. We need to figure out how we can combat that and keep it out. And here we see, he tells us, fear of Yahweh. I mean, you don't get any more clear than that. So we must allow Yahweh to guide the order of our emotions by focusing and fleeing to Yahweh. Yahweh is our ultimate control, our ultimate guide, and should be over all of our body systems, all of them. Just like these hormonal chemical messengers are running through our body, even right now while we're sitting here talking, there's so many things going on in our body that's keeping all of our processes working in order and keeping our emotions in check and our mood in check. We have to have Yahweh over us also so that we can keep ourselves in check. Absolutely. In righteousness. So I wanted to cover some symptoms of these endocrine disorders. What would we see? Well, we would see mood swings. And with that, I would see somebody that's angry or hostile,
Right.
or crying, like mood swings from one end to the other.
Yeah, just up and down, right?
Up and down. There you go. Just where you don't even know how to approach that person because it's a live wire.
Yeah.
I've been there. I have definitely not been in control of my emotions for a huge chunk of my life.
It's so funny as I look at that and think about the struggles that I've had, and that definitely has been something that was a part of my life that is no longer.
Right. Because we put Yahweh in there. It's not just there's something wrong with you. Here's a pill. That's not going to help. Absolutely, it's not going to help.
It did not.
Right. None of it helped,
Uh,
except make you feel like a walking zombie.
no,
I absolutely not. Yahweh fixed it all with no
yeah,
pills.
yeah,
That fatigue we see there, that is the inside or the downside from living in fight or flight. And anyone, like, I know, and I know, I'm sure you would go through just like me, those periods of time where you're existing and you've got that fight or flight constantly, and then wham, one day you can't get out of bed for a week, you
you
know?
know, you know what it reminds me of is when they, like, what does the world call this today, except for, like bipolar disorder or a chemical imbalance? Well, yeah, you are chemically imbalanced, and perhaps we're seeing what is the root of this, except envy.
There you go. That's exactly it.
Yeah,
And it will wipe you out. That fatigue would hit after you've been angry and
yeah,
hating on people and jealous and minding everybody's business but your own. And then all of a sudden you're just weak and fatigued
yeah,
and unintended weight fluctuations. You gain weight and you don't gain weight. When I'm depressed, when I'm really down, I can't eat. My stomach hurts and I can't eat. So whenever I see anything that says they're affected in their bowels or in their stomach or in their liver, I relate to that, because when you operate in that high level of stress, it's going to affect everything.
yeah,
That's why envy, jealousy, deceit, lying, all of those things are going to affect your gut. That's the first thing that happens when you're trying to hide a lie, isn't it? Is you have a stomach ache because you're carrying that lie right in your middle, and
yeah,
it gnaws at you because you need to stop it. That's Yah's way. He has these mechanisms built within us. It's not just you need a pill, like I said. You need to stop your behavior.
right.
Maybe you need to repent. Maybe you need some time in fasting and prayer. And the interesting thing is, with your endocrine system and your digestive system, fasting helps reset all of these processes.
Wow.
So that's why taking your time to fast and spend time in prayer with Yah will actually help reset these systems that are going haywire. And it can change your life. Intermittent fasting and prayer absolutely will change your life.
Yeah,
And then you see
absolutely.
those changes. Yeah.
I think
Those,
it was that Nina was talking with me about that, and talking about how beneficial the intermittent fasting is, and I've been reading books about that and trying to get myself into some of that to try to just reset. Yeah,
so see, even if you think about it, intermittent fasting could just be, you eat supper at 5 today and then you don't eat again until lunch tomorrow. You
right.
started just in those little steps forward.
Yeah,
And the one thing is to remember, you can't just go eat a big meal afterwards. You've got to work your way back into eating, with like broth or small things like that. I did such a huge boo boo the first time I fasted by just going and eating a huge meal. And oh my goodness, that is not what you do. You will be sorry. So, neurological manifestations of endocrine disorder. This, I found so many documents, I couldn't even fit it all. I had to just take a little piece of this because there's so many, and it just shows you how disorder within your endocrine system really does affect everything, like from headaches that went along with migraines, vascular migraines. What was the other one? The inner ear, it's an inner ear disorder, pseudo migraine. They can literally feel like you're having a stroke. It affects your vision, your hearing, altered mentality. So people actually, sometimes they think mom or dad's got dementia or Alzheimer's, and it's not, or they think they're schizophrenic. And it turns out to be their endocrine disorder. They may be diagnosed as bipolar, just like you said,
yeah,
but it has nothing to do with the brain chemistry. It has to do with the endocrine system being in some kind of disorder.
Well, oh, I'm sorry. You go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was going to say, when we look at that and we're thinking about, we are, for he is the head and we are the body of Yahusha. And so we've already covered the nervous system and the tribe of Issachar, right?
Right.
And so thinking about this, I was looking, let me see if I can find it here. This is just kind of a basic outline maybe of where the tribes were, right? And so you've got, when you're thinking about, you've got this space here in the middle. Well, the people, they were spread out, there were a lot of people. And so if you've got somebody on this side, well, they're going to be fellowshipping there, right here in this space. They're going to be coming together. We affect one another. And so I was just kind of thinking about that, with the whole thing about how one body system affects another body system. And you can, you're right there. And what, when one falls, this is why it's important to try to help raise each other back up, because when one falls, it can take down another.
It hurts everyone.
It does. It hurts everybody. What we choose to do affects everybody in the body.
It does. It absolutely does. And it spreads like wildfire
It
is the
does.
thing. And if it's a negative thing, it goes even faster. I've noticed.
Yeah.
The good moves slower than the negative for whatever reason. And it is that we're in a battle against the principalities, right? We're in a battle constantly with things we can't see, but they see us all the time and they hear us all the time and they know what that person's saying over there versus over here. And that's that little voice that gets in your ear that makes you develop envy or jealousy or hatred, or makes you think you can do something to somebody, whether it's out in the open or behind closed doors. It always comes out, though. That's the problem.
Wasn't it when we looked at Proverbs, which, it talked about there's 6 things Yah hates, but the seventh is an abomination. And the seventh was he who causes discord, with the brethren, discord in the body. So
because they don't just take themselves down, they take others with them.
Right.
And it could be someone, it could be people that just aren't strong enough in their walk yet, that can be swayed. That's right. That's exactly right. And we see that within the body systems and the endocrine system. One disorder, you see how it controls everything in our body. So just one thing out of order can cause all these other things to not work. I mean, you can die. You can just die. Diabetics, if they aren't producing insulin anymore, if they don't get insulin, they're not going to live. It's just the way it is. So yeah, one thing, one person can take a whole half of the body down with him. And that's why it's an abomination to him, because he knows how quickly it can just wipe out half his children, and he's not okay with that. He doesn't want to lose one of us, not one of us. So that abnormal muscle strength we see with that, that's that withered hand, right?
Yeah.
He got that abnormal muscle strength. His hand withered up. That's what that's about. The muscle tone. There you go. That's that right withered hand. I really believe his endocrine system was working double time when y'all put a halt to some stuff, to put him in check. That muscle tone and gait problem, movement disorders, developmental delay, irritability, and somnolence or apathy, inability to care. Think about that.
Yeah,
we're apathetic to something.
That became concrete. Yeah, it was like what you talked about, literally your emotions turning to stone because you're like, nope. Yeah, so and that's that mentality that leads to say, I didn't even consider him my brother anymore.
Exactly.
I hated him so much. My jealousy was so strong that it rationalizes anything I might do to that person because I don't even consider them human or part of the body or part of, the body
Right.
of Yahusha.
And
So
that's
it's
what we
okay to
see.
do whatever I want to them.
That's what we see. I used to watch all the crime shows. And when I was in nursing school, I had an abnormal psychology teacher. And pretty much the whole semester, we just went over and looked at all the different major serial killers and their mental capacities and mental issues that led to that. And apathy is number one.
Wow.
They don't see you as a human. They didn't see their kill, their people that they targeted. They weren't human to them at all. That's how
Yeah,
they could get away with doing that and it not affect them because they didn't relate to them as a human being. I
right.
mean,
Yeah,
and
yeah. It's like
that is
the
exactly
definition of a
what Simeon,
psychopath.
right? That's what Simeon was doing, though, right? He
Yeah,
didn't even see him as a human. Forget that he's blood of my blood, that we're related. Forget
yeah.
that. I want him dead, you
You know,
know?
and here's what's amazing is to take someone that has gone to that level, right, in their thinking process, that far into the rut. And then what is the rope that brings them back up out of that rut except for developing a fear of Yahweh and how
Yes.
that rope is extended and that person's able to climb up out of that pit of destruction that the enemy has trapped them in their thinking process. Wow.
Look at what Jennifer said. This is so good.
Yeah.
Empathy is a character trait of our Father. It's Him in us. And that's exactly what we're talking about there.
Yeah.
Um, to fear Yahweh is to have him in us, I believe.
Yeah.
To listen to that still small voice, he was
Yeah.
definitely not listening to any voice except for the adversary who was saying, get him, get him, get him.
Right.
That's what happens. So common endocrine disorders, diabetes causes that high blood glucose level due to inability to either produce the insulin or regulate it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to affect your energy. Hyperthyroidism is too much thyroid hormone that causes your weight loss, fast heart rate, sweating, nervousness. People just, if you ever see someone that is thin, but they're sweaty and they can't be still, a lot of times that's hyperthyroidism. Their heart's just going constantly,
Yeah.
and they can't gain weight because their metabolism is just whack. It is just like they're running a marathon 24/7.
Wow.
And then the hypothyroidism is too little thyroid hormone, and they're so tired and become constipated. They have severely dry skin. You can literally see flakes. Their skin will turn ashen and they'll have flakes. And
Wow.
they're so depressed because their metabolism is just gone. There's
Yeah.
no energy at all. None. Zero.
Wow.
And Cushing syndrome, that's that excess hormone of cortisol that comes from your adrenal glands that helps your body to respond to stress. And with that, you've either got someone in a constant state of reaction, where they're just expecting something, and your body's always ramped up. And the opposite of that is just not being able to react at all. And that causes severe depression. There's so many parts of this that have such an effect on our psychological, like we saw in the neurological manifestations. I see Simeon as suffering from so many of these issues. And the acromegaly, that's giantism.
Wow.
That's why when you were talking about the First Kings part, who they were going up against, even I wonder how many of them were suffering with the giantism, right?
Yeah.
And then we've got it's amazing though, how we're lining things up, and I'm looking at things going, oh my goodness. It's so amazing. Blows me away. Y'all is amazing. And if this
Yeah.
isn't just making you constantly just be like, I am beautifully and wonderfully made. Look at all of these things that are going on that I don't even have a clue about, but that my father knew that I needed to happen, within me every second.
Yeah. Yeah. When you see his intelligent design, I mean, to me, it takes far more faith in nothing to believe that just poof, you know,
There's no way that this was an accident.
when just looking at the intricacy of everything, how can you not understand intelligent design? Our creator, amazing.
Right. And that he downloaded this information to line up the trucks with it that line us up. We are those tribes. We were
Right.
the first tabernacle. Everything is lined up to be reflective of what was going to have to happen externally, because we, messed up. The last one I think I had was the polycystic ovary syndrome, which is the overproduction of androgens that interfere with the development of eggs and the release from the ovaries. So did you cover
I did.
okay,
I
good.
did not.
I thought I'd gone down. So this Testament of Simeon, again, I read it and read it and read it and just love this book. I'm going to have to get the 12 patriarchs. So 7-9. Do ye also, my children, love each one his brother with a good heart, and the ruach of envy will withdraw from you. There we go again with how to combat envy, is to love your brother with a good heart, meaning you mean it. You're not just saying you love them. You actually love them from a place in your heart that is just love.
You know what really hits me with this? What did Yahusha tell us contained all of the Torah and the prophets was the two commandments: love Yahweh with all your heart, your mind, and your soul and your strength, right? And then
Right.
love your neighbor as yourself. I
As
mean,
yourself.
really, we're seeing it right here in this one testament that this is what destroyed this most evil of Ruachs, because we're told that this one really is the worst one. I wish I had the scripture memorized. I keep telling myself to memorize this one, but there is a scripture that tells us that it is when this jealousy is there, when this envy is there, it invites with it every other evil ruach. Like this
It
is like
does.
a principal one. Yeah,
It's an open door, I feel like. The
yeah,
minute you start down that path with envy, you've opened your door for every single other evil ruach to just jump on you. And boy, they jump on like flies. They come out of everywhere.
yeah.
And that's how people end up hurting other people. That's how you end up doing the things that we shouldn't be doing,
Hmm.
For this makes savage the soul and destroys the body. Well, there you go. I mean, you want to talk about disrupting your endocrine system, which then disrupts the whole body. Envy would definitely be the thing that would attack it. It makes savage the soul and destroys the body because it can't function correctly. We
Right.
need our chemical messengers to be doing the right thing so everything works. And without that, it's just going to destroy our body, our vessel. It causes anger and war in the mind. We see that with the disorders of the endocrine system. What happens with your adrenals, what happens with your pineal gland. If you can't sleep good, you're not going to be nice. It's just the way it is.
That's right.
I'm not. I just sleep is so important.
It's
That's
so
your pineal
important.
gland. And it stirs up unto deeds of blood. and leads the mind into a frenzy, and suffers not prudence to act in men. Moreover, it takes away sleep, and causes tumult to the soul and trembling to the body. For even in sleep, some malicious jealousy deluding him gnaws, and with wicked ruach disturbs his soul, and causes the body to be troubled, and wakes the mind from sleep and confusion. And as wicked and poisonous ruach, so appears it to men.
Wow.
And that just hit me. I had to read this over and over and over. It was like, wow, this is just it's like you said, envy is at the base of all bad deeds that we're capable of doing, because even in our sleep, we can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have the fear of Yahweh, and you're not repenting daily, and you're not making sure you have the Ruach HaKodesh, you're not using him as your guidepost. If for 1 second you let a thought come into your mind, that's game on.
Yeah.
Even if it isn't happening when you're awake, it can get to you in your sleep. And I think we talked about sleep. Was it last week or the week before?
Or the week before.
Yeah. We were talking about, I pray every night before I go to sleep, because I can have some pretty horrific dreams from trauma, and I know you do as well. So I have to really say, Yah, you be with me tonight. You give me the Ruach HaKodesh within me, and if I have a dream, let it be something from you. And I do have dreams sometimes that aren't great, but they're not the ones from trauma. They're the ones, I think, where he's showing all of us. We're in that time, right, where we're going to start seeing in our dreams what's coming. It's a warning.
Right.
And wow, could our endocrine system correlate more to Simeon? I really don't think so. I really don't think anything could line up any better than what we see here with him, his moods, his strength, and this envy. He knows that it's this malicious jealousy.
Right.
Yeah, because we saw that envy is an action as well. You wish harm on another. Like he wanted to kill Joseph. Not only was he jealous of him, but he wanted to hurt him. And that's what envy is. It's not just being jealous of what someone else has, or their job, or their position, or what they're doing. You secretly want to hurt them.
Right.
And whether it's an assassination of their character or physically harming them. But we know, even if we think something, it's done. So you could murder someone, and to Yah, it's the same. If you did it, murdering their character is the same as murdering that person. That's murder. You murdered them. That's important to remember that. When I was in churchianity, and now I see it a lot still, people think, well, I didn't physically go out and kill anyone, so I'm keeping the 10 Commandments. They think that's it, that killing someone means you took their life. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that. If you assassinated their character, you've assassinated that person.
Right. Right.
So Simeon camped with Reuben and Gad in the camp of Reuben, and together, as we see how much they work together. Reuben, the urinary system, the adrenal glands, which are part of the endocrine system, release that aldosterone, which is a hormone that sends signals to the kidneys to absorb more sodium into the bloodstream and release potassium into, I don't know why it says ring. It's supposed to be urine. There's no ring. It's urine. And the result is homeostasis of your blood's pH level. Wow, how important is that? I mean, and then we see with Gad, which we're going to go into next, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Is immune and hematology system, which is your blood. So it works with the endocrine system and shares the thymus gland, which helps protect your immune system. And without an immune system, where would you be? You would be very sick and dead because you've got to have those things working together to fight off infection, to even fight cancer, and all the other blood-borne pathogens that are after us. That's going to be fun getting into that next
Oh
week.
yeah. Yeah, I'm
Looking
looking
into
forward to
that.
that. Yeah,
And it
definitely.
may take a little deeper dive with the
Yeah.
course of what's going on in the world. And I love this chapter 6. And I just touched briefly on this. I know you're going to cover it, but uh, chapter 6 of the Testament of Simeon. Behold, I have told you all things that I may be acquitted of your sin. Now, if you remove from you your envy and all stiff neckedness, as a rose, my bones flourish in Yasharel, and as a lily, my flesh in Yaakov, and my odor shall be as the odor of Lebanon, as cedars shall holy ones be multiplied from me forever, and their branches shall stretch afar off.
Yeah.
So the cedar tree is mentioned 72 times in the Bible. Cedar trees grow best in deep soil where their roots can have access to water. And I really love that because not long ago I did Mercy Poured Forth talking about the springs of righteousness and the living water. Um, and I found that just so interesting that those cedar trees grow best with deep soil, good roots, good deep roots with access to that living water. To me, I just
Beautiful.
I see Yahusha. I see being, having our roots in the Torah, the word made flesh. I just, I think I see that in everything, and it's really there.
Yeah.
In Psalms 92:12, the righteous shall flourish like the palm tree. He shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. David had an idea there. Hosea 14:4, I will heal their backsliding. I will love them freely, for my anger is turned away from him. In 5, I will be as the dew unto Yasharel. He shall grow as the lily and cast forth his roots as Lebanon. His branches shall spread, and his beauty shall be as the olive tree, and his smell as Lebanon.
Wow, that's amazing because that's the exact correlation that we see from the testimony of, let me see if I can get back in there. It's in, I believe it was in chapter 6 where that was. Let me see if I can get that open real quick. I've got the copy of it that I typed in. Testimony. Here
Yep,
it is.
it is 6.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, let me move that over for a minute.
Do you want me to move mine out?
Oh, hold on one second. I don't know if you were done with yours.
I think I am. Let me double check. Yep, that's it. I'll take mine out.
Okay. I'll just show this little part, or I'll just read it because I'm going to go into it more. I'll just read this little part because we're going to end up going even next week when we go into our ladies show. We're going to be touching on some more of this. But so chapter 6, I believe it is in. Let me see. Yeah, it says, Behold, I've told you all things that I may be acquitted of your sin. Now, if you remove from you your envy and all stiff neckedness, as a rose shall my bones flourish in Yasharel, and as a lily my flesh in Yaakov, and my odor shall be as the odor of Lebanon, and as cedar shall holy ones be multiplied for me forever, and their branches shall stretch afar off. And then it goes into the victory over all the enemies. But what was so interesting about what you're sharing about that, is looking at these different smells. Well, one, Hosea, the whole book of Hosea is a story about the scattering of his people into the nations and then the regathering, right? I mean, even with the naming of the children and everything, it's really fascinating. But so then we start looking at even what he's mentioning here. I love this book. It's called Healing
Healing
Oils
Oils of the
of the Bible, yeah, by David Stewart, right? And so I was looking at this when I read this about the testimony of Simeon, and I saw that in there. Um, I was looking at this thing about the cedars. Well, one of the first things that I noticed is he was talking about the price that was paid for Solomon's temple. Because what happened is all the cedars of Lebanon, it was just absolutely razed to the ground. Now, you know, everybody likes to have a cedar chest or a cedar closet,
Mm-hmm.
these things because it's an aroma and it's part of the aroma that was in the high priest anointing oil. There's a healing aroma that comes from this. And this is what he's talking about. If you walked through the forest of Lebanon, you would be getting the benefit of the aroma of these cedar wood trees. So this is what I was looking at in this because he's got a big section on this of the whole cedars of Lebanon, but I'll just read this one little part. It says cedarwood, a cure for senility and Alzheimer's with a question mark, right? It turns out that inhaling the oil of cedarwood increases the ability to think clearly and enhances the awareness needed for effective prayer and meditation. This is because of all the essential oils of the world, cedar wood contains the highest concentration of sesquiterpenes, 98%. The sesquiterpenes in cedarwood have the ability to pass through the blood-brain barrier and oxygenate the brain directly upon inhalation by way of the nasal passages and the olfactory nerves. It has even been suggested that cedarwood oil might prevent senility and Alzheimer's disease. While the biochemistry of the process just described was not known in ancient times, the fact that cedar wood created an environment that enhanced clear thinking was appreciated by the Egyptians. They were perhaps the first civilization to distill cedar wood oil, something they had been doing as far back as 3500 BC. They used the oil for a variety of purposes, including temple worship, emotional clearing, embalming, enhancing mental clarity, and as an insect repellent. No doubt some of these facts were also appreciated by the Israelites as well, who learned the art of creating and applying essential oils during their Egyptian captivity. It is probably no coincidence that both David and Solomon chose cedar as the wood for their homes and temples. For a king who has to make decisions every day that affects thousands of subjects living in an environment where they would inhale cedarwood oil every day would contribute toward wise judgments and help keep their consciousness elevated on a spiritual level. Perhaps the wisdom of Solomon was even greater than we thought and included a sophisticated knowledge of essential oils and how they could assist him in ruling his kingdom in an effective way that was pleasing to God.
Wow. And let's just think about the pineal gland again that we just went over and how the pineal gland looks like a pine cone, right?
Right?
Like a pine cone in our brain. It affects our sleep wake cycle, our circadian rhythm. So that cedar wood smell would be working specifically on the organ that's in control of our ability to pray, to meditate, to sleep, to dream. All of that
Right.
comes from the pineal gland. And that
Amazing.
cedar wood oil oxygenates that specific area because that's where it's going when it breaches that blood brain barrier and puts that oxygenation in there, decalcifies the pineal gland. Of
Wow.
course they would have that going because they need to be on their sharpest mental acuity. And
Yeah.
and that's how you would do that. And another thing that y'all did that's like, wow, there's
Wow.
no way any of this was an accident. And that specific thing affects an organ that's in the shape of a pine cone.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Can't make it up. No.
Nope, you just can't. Well, this has been so interesting today, Leigh. It really has. I didn't know if you had anything else to add, final thoughts. Okay, yeah, I think this has just been excellent. Well, I've enjoyed
Excellent.
it. I'm learning so much by doing this with you. I'm just so happy that y'all gave us this to do.
Me
It's
too.
fascinating and I'm enjoying it.
I have too. And I just hope everyone uh, sticks with us. It's only going to get better
Right. That's right.
when we tie it all together finally at the end.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being
Thank
with us
you.
here today. Now, you and James have a show coming up a little later this afternoon, right? What are
We
you guys talking
do.
about today?
Today, we are talking about what was actually nailed to the cross. So we're diving right straight into those waters and stirring them up real good.
That's
So
right. Well, what if our favorite lines? Sometimes you got to stir up the waters, right?
that's right. That's
That's
right.
right. That's a great line out of The Chosen. All right. Well, this is an interesting comment. So Jen was trying to tell us what she meant here. She put it in the comment underneath. That was that fluoride
Absolutely.
calcifies the
Absolutely.
pineal gland.
And they put that in our water.
Right,
That's why we don't drink tap water.
right,
I would suggest, and I know I've said this before, I would get a Berkey or an Alexa Pure, anything that you can do like a gravity type
yeah,
filtering. But you're exactly right. Fluoride does calcify the pineal gland, and there's actually some. If you research, there are actually some cleanses that you can do that will help decalcify your pineal gland because it really does affect so much in your life, including your sleep wake cycle. You know,
yeah, yeah. That's what I Helen's got down here that she's using that Berkey. That's what Robert and I have here too.
hmm
Helen is we use the Berkey. You know, it's funny on the cheat sheet when y'all was giving this to me, and that Leigh and I are kind of working off of. You know, after he kind of showed me some things that night was. That one of I have some modern world effects that I was trying to line up with these things. And what I had underneath this endocrine system was the pharmakia. And to me, that sorcery would be things like putting that fluoride in our water
absolutely,
system. Yeah, chemicals.
absolutely.
Yeah,
They've been poisoning us with that sorcery in our water since I think that started in the 40s and the 50s, and it's been
right.
going since then. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, really, when you look into this, I've been looking a lot lately at this download that seems to have happened right about the time of the 1940s or World War II. And I think that things took a huge
Turn.
turn at
Hmm.
that point, and we saw a lot more activity of the fallen watcher technology in our society.
Absolutely.
Much of it's been hidden from us, right? But it's been in place for quite some time
It
and effective.
has. You
Yeah,
just got to dig into it. You know, this is the age where you can do that research.
yeah,
Right up until they fix it where you can't search for anything. But for right now, there are several different search engines you can get on Brave or
yeah,
uh, DuckDuckGo sometimes, but I feel like they're pretty compromised already.
right,
So you just got to keep searching and digging, and that's what you have to do to stay ahead of it, to be aware. We're not to be fearful, but we
right.
don't have to sit with our head in the sand, you know.
Yeah. And I think that Jennifer was trying to let us know oregano oil is another way to probably enhance what we were talking about.
Decalcification
Yeah,
probably of the
okay,
pineal gland. Oregano oil is excellent for so many things. It is a hot oil, so you can't ever just use that directly on your skin. It will burn you up.
yeah,
But I
absolutely.
diffuse it, and it will actually kill bacteria in your air. So it is excellent stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Well, this has been so much fun. I'm so glad we're doing this together.
Me
And
too.
I hope everybody else is getting as much out of it as you and I are getting out of it, Leigh. You and I are having a blast. So
We are. It's so amazing. Y'all's amazing.
he really is. All righty. Everybody, blessings unto you. Please come back and join Leigh and James a little bit later on Between the River and the Ravens, 4 o'clock, right? 4 o'clock p.m. today,
Yes. Yes.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
righty. Okay. Well, hope you guys can come join them then. And until then, may Yahweh make his face shine upon you and give you of his shalom. All righty. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye. Shalom.
Their journey began in Yasharel. But they were scattered across the face of the earth, each one with its own beat, and each one with its own rhythm. As the dry bones are being revived, the beat begins again at the heart of the tribe.